Sooner Nation, Thunder Nation, we are back. This is the Just Okay Sports podcast. That's just Oklahoma sports and a Just Okay podcast. I'm one of your village idiots. Daryl, I'm here with my brother, Jared. Jared, how are you, sir?
Dude, it's game week.
It's
How can you
game
how could you do
week.
bad? How could you do bad? No, it's good. I'm freaking hyped. Like Friday cannot get here fast enough. I'm sure everybody says that every week, but a little extra this week. A little extra this week. So yeah, I'm just pumped. Like finally, like last week can we just like the Florida State Georgia Tech game that was a
Yeah.
great kickoff
Yeah.
to it. What a game. I do feel bad for DJ whatever half you
Uyangale.
go. Yeah, he is getting drug like by everybody. Which I think is a little unfair. I mean, he did not look great, but yeah,
It's
what a
it's one
weird
of
way.
those
Like I was
things. Like he wasn't great, but like, do you seriously watch that game and go, "Oh, he lost them the game"? Like, I didn't feel
right
that way. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like your defense
there.
getting gashed for 30-yard run plays left and right. It's what
Yeah, the
got you.
defense, which in their defense was supposed to still be really. I mean, obviously they lost. Like I was a big Jared Verse fan.
Yeah.
Last year. And of course, they lost him and some of those guys, but they supposedly reloaded with the transfer portal and everything, and they looked like they were getting bullied by Georgia Tech. To be honest with you, but yeah, it was fun to watch. Like I like the SMU. My prediction for SMU to a dark horse is looking terrible because that did not look like a good game for them. Um, but anyway, but yeah, Georgia Tech game. I just was like, it's funny because like I also felt like watching that game they would get a little bit of success running, and then instead of like trying to stretch the field up, like at all, it kind of felt like they just kept like their passing game just stayed in that like short slants or comebacks or like I mean they didn't really do anything to really where they were like anything that would pull people out of the box or anything, you know what I mean, or like
Right.
exploit that there was people loaded in the box. Like it just kind of felt like they ran a very vanilla offense, and that didn't really help them. I don't think that really did him any favors.
Yeah, and that was I didn't get to watch the game, but I was getting drug all night. We had our auction league fantasy draft Friday night or Saturday night during that game, and SMU was one of my picks to make the playoff in our little pick'ems deal. And dude, they were like ha 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 the whole time. Then they came back and won. It's like, well, I guess they're still, and I was like, but again though, like that's the beauty that I do love about the 12-team playoff already. We hadn't even had this in the flow, but like Florida State looks bad. Like there's no getting around that. But a little bit like last year, like we said, like Oklahoma State looked awful against South Alabama and then got better and better and better as the year went along, right? And had a chance to win the conference at the end. Like if 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 it's a 4-team playoff, Oklahoma State was never going to get in, no matter what,
Right.
because of that loss. This year, you could have that loss, and if your team gets healthy or whatever it is, and you take off and you win your conference, you have every opportunity to still get in the playoff when you're playing your best football. And that's part of what makes this a little great is expanding the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be, like we've lived through an era where it's been a long time since it's like, the BCS era was like basically you had to go undefeated. Like that was
Mm-hmm.
pretty much the benchmark. And then when the playoff came, it was like you could have a loss, but you really had to be like in the special circumstance, right?
Yeah.
And then now with the 12-team playoffs, it's like we're talking about 2 and 3 loss teams potentially sneaking into some of these.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I think it definitely is a different aspect. But like I said, it's just like that's why you love college football. Like people have asked me, like people that aren't college football fans have been like, why do you like college football? Like, why don't you like it? And I'm like, it's just the games like that when you watch like a Florida State Georgia Tech game where it's like you
Yeah.
have no idea which way it's going to go. There's all the pageantry and all that stuff that you could highlight too, but it's like I don't think anybody expected Georgia Tech to. I mean, I was one of the few people that said I thought Georgia Tech was going to be a gritty, tough team that was going to fight
Mm-hmm.
hard, but I expected Florida State to win.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it played out the way it did, I don't think anybody came out and thought that like Georgia Tech was just gonna like run over Florida State's
Yeah.
defense. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just that's the beauty of college football. It's unpredictable.
Yeah. It's really great. So it was fun. It was really, really fun. So Well, as we said, Oklahoma is in game week mode. It is time to get ready for it. Now, look, I don't think anybody's overly worried about this game, including Temple fans. And one of the reasons we know that is a few days ago we got to interview Sean McGady of I'll Be Back podcast, who covers the team. And one of the reasons we got him is he's had their head coach, their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator on his podcast. He's very connected, kind of knows the inner workings of everything there. Does a fantastic job. And so we just felt like he would have the best information as far as what to look for. Because look, let's be honest, this team is 6-18 over the last 2 seasons. Not great. But I always like to kind of, when you don't follow a team, what are the circumstances in that? And he kind of gives a little bit of that in this interview. So help you get a little bit educated about Temple that we're going to play on Friday. Here is Sean McGady. Well, Sooner Nation, we are pumped to have Sean McGady on with us tonight, a part of a podcast and different content called I'll Be Back with Temple. And as you know, we kick off the season this week. And so we are super excited to have him on board. Sean, how are you, my man?
I am great. Daryl and Jared, thank you guys for having me on. I'm really excited to be here and talk, college football. It's finally here, so we can talk about it again.
It's the best time of the year, right? Always the best time of the year. And before we get started, we'll do this again later on. But Sean, tell everybody where they can find your content and what kind of stuff you have rolling out for folks all the time.
So I'm on Twitter at Al_be_back. I actually just made an Instagram account because the younger kids don't do Twitter. They do Instagram. So I
Right.
joined it. It's a thing. I don't know if it's working for me or not. And you can find me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'll be back with Sean McGady.
Very good, man. Awesome stuff. Sean, before we get to the game itself, I had meant to kind of have this conversation with you off recording, but I was just curious, like, I know for us, we seem to always come back to the conversation of NIL, transfer, like all the stuff. And, again, not trying to throw shade, but obviously it's a very different world. It seems like from the D2 level to the group of 5 level to the P4 level, and then even like your typical blue bloods and your Georgias and Alabama. So what has that game kind of been like for Temple so far, and how do you feel like y'all are maneuvering the waters through that new system?
Yes, it's hard to talk about college athletics without bringing up either or. I will admit, and I think most people from Temple's perspective, we were late to the game, especially in the NIL world.
Mm.
We are making strides. I've had our main one is called the Tough Fund, TUFF Fund, run by Andy Carl, and I've had him on my show many a time. And I would say he's a lot happier these days than he was about 2.5, 3 years ago when he started this.
Mm-hmm.
Still not where we want to be at, but we've come a long way. And obviously that affects how you do in the transfer portal. It's
Right.
not so easy to get transfers if you don't have, X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
Primarily a lot of our NIL right now is used for basketball. We are more of a basketball school. We are trying to transition into getting it as just as much for football. I mean, it's more players and harder. And where Temple stands currently as a football program, we know we're not going to compete with guys like Oklahoma, even guys like middle of the pack ACC schools. But if we can get comparable to our conference level, I think that's like a realistic game for us.
Right.
So I just saw, I think it was Alabama just signed their quote unquote GM to like $800,000 deal, and he
Yeah.
deals with all their NIL.
Yeah.
That's not happening at Temple and anytime soon. So, and I can be realistic about it. I
Yeah.
can say that's just not our thing. But yeah, it's definitely something that we've worked through. I mean, honestly, I think through what we did in the transfer portal this year for football, I'm not mad at it given the circumstances, like who they brought in. It looks like they brought in some, decent JUCO guys. They brought in some guys from the ACC and some guys from
Mm-hmm.
interconference, stuff like that. Were they playing there? No, but they get to come to Temple and kind of get their chance now. So
Yeah.
that's a realistic transfer portal world for us. Like, yeah, if we can get maybe a D2 guy to come up a level, or we get a guy from a Power Four conference, and then we can, give him some playing time. So it is what it is right now. But yes, we're making strides in that world. Are we where we want to be? No, but are we definitely improved? Yes.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I think now that as we kind of turn to game week and trying to look ahead, one of the things I was kind of excited about you coming on is it's unfortunately, in the world of internet and information, it's just too easy, right? To go on and go, oh, well, Temple was 3-9 last year. This team is terrible. They stink. They don't even know what football is. But can you kind of help us understand, like, really was the team like just in a terrible situation, or were there some kind of circumstances going on that maybe people don't know that really led to that season a year ago?
Yeah, so and now mind you, I have a Temple Sports podcast. I'm going to sugarcoat this in a way that's like, and it's still going to sound really bad. That's the worst part. Like, it's still not going to sound that good. So this is year 3 of Stan Drayton being our head coach. So the first year we go 3-9. Any coach first year, you're going to see some growing pains. And if you follow us closely enough, or no, Rod Carey was our previous coach, and Rod Carey did not leave the program in a good position at all. No one has ever disagreed with that. So Stan had a lot of ground to make up. So second year, you're thinking, all right, you're 3-9 year 1. Can you make a little bit of a jump? Maybe 5 wins, possibly 6. You go bowling. That's like a realistic trajectory. Obviously, that did not happen. So last year, we almost our entire offensive line and defensive line was injured by like week 3. Like, we had nothing in the trenches. So about a month ago, I actually had our offensive line coach, Chris Wiesahan, on, and he looked at me like, on the Zoom call. He said, Sean, in the last 2 years, we've had 24 games. I have had 22 different starting offensive line groups, which is borderline impossible to do. So he said there was only 2 times where he said from 1 week to the next week, I looked at the same 5 guys. Every other game, it was a new group of guys, whether it was left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. So that alone, it's like, yeah, no crap, he went back-to-back 3-9 seasons. And yes, the next man up mentality. Apparently, the next guy was not ready. And I think a lot of those guys who were playing last year by week 3, 4, 5, whether it was offensive line, and the defensive line got hurt a lot as well, they definitely wanted to redshirt some of those guys, get them some, reps in the weight room and put on 30 pounds of them. And instead, it's like, well, you were supposed to be a redshirt, and instead, good luck, week 6. Like, so I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm saying that was everything that could go wrong possibly on the offensive line went wrong. Defensive line had a lot of injuries as well. So for those who don't know, last year our quarterback was E.J. Warner, and if you recognize that last name, it's because he is the son of Kurt Warner. I think he was probably one of the fastest, like, statistically getting the ball out of his hands in the country. And people look at that stat like, oh, that's really good. It's like, no, he actually had to, or he was going to die. Like, he had to get the ball out of his hands in 2.15 seconds, or he was going to get sacked almost every play.
Yeah, it was a business decision to get rid of the ball that quickly.
100%. So some people looked at his stats last year and said, oh, we have a good quarterback at least. And he had definitely had games where he rocked it. We were one of the worst running teams in the country, though. So he had no running game to go with. You could just pretty much play like prevent defense. We weren't ever going to get, more than 100 yards rushing, which really sucked for the defense, because if, we go 3 and out on 3 passing plays, the defense is on and off the field in a minute and a half. Even the defense wasn't very good, but on the days that they had some, stops here and there, they were pretty much back on the field within 2 minutes and had no rest. And then they gave up a touchdown the next drive. So, like, again, almost everything that could go wrong really went wrong. And then E.J. Warner went and transferred. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the expectations this year, I think, we're very minimal, because knowing all of everything I just said. I did have a chance to go to, for our season ticket holders, they had a semi-open practice a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
Everybody seems healthy at the moment, so I'm going to knock on all the wood that I can right now and pray. But they did look bigger, they look stronger, and I think, some of those guys who last year got the playing time when they probably shouldn't have, now they have a little bit of an experience, so if you can look at some positive, it's like, all right, now a lot of those guys got playing time. We did bring in some guys who are a little bit bigger. And I had the head coach on Stan Drayton a couple weeks ago, and he said that. He's like, Sean, we recruited bigger on purpose. We knew we were lacking size last year. We tried to get some bigger bodies. Hey, does it automatically translate onto the field? And let's be honest, I'm sure the biggest guy on Temple would not be the biggest guy on Oklahoma. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so back-to-back 3-9 seasons, a little bit of growing pains, a little bit of injuries, and a little bit of, just lack of overall recruiting in depth, all combined into one. So I think we have some playmakers, but if your QB can't get them the ball, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Do you think there's like, if you had to like pick one reason to like that you would say that there is going to be improvement, if like there's one ray of hope, what would you say that is this season?
Um, so I think like definitely that depth is better now. So like I think the coaching staff is a little more confident in the twos or the threes if the
Mhm.
injuries do happen. And like I said, it sounds like the strength and conditioning has been a definitely large improved process for them. So they are healthier at the moment. But I think they are a little more confident in the backups if they have to go that route. Um, so this is going to sound really weird as the time of us recording this. So I said EJ Warner transferred. They have not named a starter yet. So there's three
Mhm.
guys in the mix. And I don't think that starter has to be, God's gift to earth and passing of football.
Mhm.
But I think if they can get a better running game than they had last year, he doesn't have to be the greatest quarterback ever. If they can get somewhat of a stable offense where they can run the ball efficiently, which last year they didn't at all. So the quarterback, whoever it was going to be screwed. But if you can kind of figure out a way to get some form of a running game this year and then pair that with whoever the QB is, and I can get into all the quarterback conversation as well. But to answer this question, like if the quarterback can just get the ball to the playmakers, be a game manager for lack of a better description, paired with an improved running game and an improved defense. Like I do think they have some good players on defense that can definitely help them and make plays. And if they can, the offense can stay on the field for a longer drive, then the defense might look better. So there's just a lot of moving parts there, but it's not impossible. I think a realistic Temple fan this year is like, hey, our ceiling is maybe that 5, 6 win mark. Realistic, it's like, are we going to go 3-9 again? If you go worse, I don't think we can do much worse than the last 2 seasons, to be honest. So if we do that, I might have to shut down the podcast. I wouldn't be back on the show.
For sure. So, based on you watching this team over the last couple of years, how much do you believe the environment of coming in to a night game in Oklahoma and especially a Friday night? I don't know how much they've had to play the Thursday, Friday night schedule, but do you feel like that's going to impact this team very much, especially with a lot of transfers? Sounds like a lot of young guys might be playing too.
Yeah, so overall they had about 50 guys come in through the transfer portal. About 20 were freshmen, like incoming high schoolers for freshmen, and about 25, 30 are closer to like JUCO or came from a school. So yes, they have a lot of new faces, and I did get a chance to ask the head coach Stan about that, and I just said like, hey, how is it implementing all these guys so quickly? I mean, that's your job, and he
Mhm.
said, yeah, that is, because of the transfer portal that we talked about at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
He said every coach is really doing that. Like most schools are having that size of a recruiting class now, whether you're good or bad. So he
Right.
just said that's just part of the job now, and he can complain about it if he wants, but it doesn't matter. That's
Yeah.
what he has to do. Um, Now it's funny you asked about the Friday Night Light thing. This just got reported yesterday. Apparently Saturday we don't have our own football field. We play where the Eagles play. But Saturday night they had a scrimmage and it was at University of Penn, which is also in Philadelphia. So they purposely played at Penn. I think it was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock to implement that like Friday night feeling
Mhm.
under the lights. Um, and I think also the coach kind of, from what I heard, it's kind of like get them ready for that traveling, like waking up that
Mhm.
morning of the game day, getting off the bus to the hotel or wherever. But obviously
Yeah.
they did it from campus. So they're doing their best with the circumstances. They're not going to fly the guys out for a
Right.
practice, but they tried to emulate it the best that they could. Some of these guys, like I said, have come from a big conference. We have had some Thursday night games, like our conference does get some ESPN Thursday night, Friday night
Mhm.
games. So they have played on a late night game before in prime time, if you want to call it that.
Mhm.
Um, Now again, we just established we went 3-9 last year. So if you go back and look at our record on those games,
Yeah.
probably not very good. So I know the coaching staff is definitely trying to do the best they can to send them down there. I mean, it's going to be tough. Last year we played Miami at home. I guess that's probably the closest to like skill wise that we could compare to, and we got rocked that game at home. So if you're going into this like, hey, you're on the road, you're at Oklahoma, and you guys are in the SEC now, so it's just saying that out loud it's we're playing an SEC team. So all those factors. And is it your first year in the SEC?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are coming out with even more of a oomph, knowing that like, hey,
Yeah.
we got to start off strong in the SEC year. So it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for us, and I we'll see how it goes.
For sure.
You talked about like how there's so many new faces. Is there any like could you give me like one person on offense and say defense that just like to you that you're going to be watching, especially like in this first game to see if they can really like show out or just is going to be you feel like that have that star power?
So on defense, I would go safety. His name's Andreas Keaton, who he actually has his own podcast, and I was fortunate enough to get him on my podcast to promote his podcast, which
Wow.
was really fun. He's a safety. He actually played for at Western Carolina last year, but like going through the stats, he was their leading tackler the last 2 years. And like if you went through our entire defense, who has the most collegiate games played, I think it's him because he was a starter there for 3 years. So now he's coming to us as a senior. And he's already had just some articles written up about him of being a leader of this defense and stuff. So Temple does this tradition called single digits, where the top 10 players on offense or defense, it depends. They vote on who gets it, and it just means you're Temple tough, which is a slogan that yes, it sounds corny and cheesy, but they've done it for like 15 years now. So my guess is he will be one of those players that is a single digit. I know they voted on it over the weekend, so they haven't announced it quite yet. Um, but if you see a safety that's either 1, 2, 5, 7, it's probably him. And then they have a running back who's a new face. So they have two running backs that I would be interested to see. One is Jaquez Smith. He was on the team last year. He was a freshman. He's probably one of the quicker backs. Like if we had a guy who I know could break outside against a defense as yours, like that's faster, he might still have that speed. Probably not breaking it for 60-yard run, but I could see him maybe getting a couple 10 or 12-yard runs where he at least outruns the linebackers and gets to the backfield. The other running back, and I'm going to look this up because don't want to pronounce his name incorrectly, is Antwain Littleton. So he is a transfer running back from Maryland. So he played at the ACC.
Oh, nice.
He's also listed at 240 pounds.
Wow.
So yeah, so like, and I've seen a picture of him. He's definitely all 240 pounds. So given the circumstances, again, you guys are SEC school. He's a 240-pound running back. I would not be surprised if he gets about 10 or 12 carries this game, just because they're like, dude, like they're big, they're fast. You're at least big. Go take some hits. So am I saying he's going to be, 1,000-yard rusher this year? Probably not. But if I just knowing that, like, hey, it's game one of the season and we're playing a big team who's going to hit us hard, I could see the 200-pound, 40-pound running back who came in from the ACC getting some carries and just, hey, good luck, man.
Yeah. For sure. So as you look at this game and kind of some of those pieces, sounds like you're still working on your quarterback, those kinds of things. How do you see this game kind of playing out as far as how Temple will either try to keep this game tight or just manage it, or any way that you think they might be able to, attack Oklahoma? Because look, new quarterback for Oklahoma, new offensive line, new OC, new DC. There's a lot new in this whole arena as well. So kind of how do you see Temple coming with the attack as they come to Norman?
Yeah, it was funny when we were messaging and you kind of sent me that whole long list, and I was like, man, that list still doesn't amount to anything I think Temple has to worry about. I was like, I appreciated you trying. I was like, I don't think it really matters. So to give everybody a quick rundown of the quarterback situation right now, and some people are in Temple world are upset. They're like, that means nobody's emerged. And yes, you could swing it that way. You could also swing it, hey, maybe there's three guys who are playing really well. So right now, there's Evan Simon, who is a transfer from Rutgers. He has a couple career starts with Rutgers and, played in the Big Ten for a couple of games. So he has that experience. You have Forrest Brock, who came in last year as a JUCO. He got some mop-up duty in a couple games, nothing crazy. But at least he was here last year, so he knows the system. And then the third guy who really going into training camp wasn't mentioned. Like coming out of spring ball, it looked like it was the first two, and then he's kind of gotten mentioned a lot more and more. And it seems like he's part of the race. How if he's if it's 1A, 1B, and then he's two, that's probably the most sensible way to put it. Is Tyler Douglas. Now, I think realistically, all three of these guys are going to play in this game, and I think the realistic thing is you guys might go 14-0, 17-0, 21-0, whatever it is. Whenever that happens, the second guy comes in. And then when it gets to, 28-7, the third guy comes in. And then if they rotate from there, or if they say, hey, you're getting this year, like I don't want them all to just keep rotating every series.
Right.
The key will be if one of them can get momentum.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys go up 7-0, and whoever the starter is, probably Brock or Simon, if they go down and get a field goal right away, like, hey, not a touchdown, but you get 30 yards, get us in field goal range. And I will say our kicker apparently has been making like 55 yarders in practice. So like that's just a heads up. If it happens, don't be like, where'd this Temple kicker come from? But because I would absolutely do that if a team
Yeah.
worse than us made like a
Well,
60-yard.
considering that's one of our biggest weak points as well, everyone is terrified of our place kickers. So you might see everybody just trying to grab him if he makes a 50-yarder and just put a different uniform on him.
If we
I
had
was
a
worried.
if we had a bright spot, I would say it's possibly special teams. Between the kickers apparently making like 50+ yarders, and our long snapper just got named to the long snapper award list. Like, hey, we got that going for us.
There
So
we
we got
go.
something.
Yeah, that the opposite for us. We were worried about the safety of our kicker after some games, I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah.
people were not happy. So are you, by the way, are you going to be making the trip to Norman to see the game, or?
So unfortunately, I will not be making the trip. So I am a school teacher, and that is like the last weekend of my summer break. We start school that fall. So like, I have to be an adult. I haven't been an adult for about 10 weeks now. So like, I had to bite the bullet and be like, if I made that trip, I'd probably miss the first day of school. And
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be the teacher, so it's really embarrassing if I do
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
That's fair.
Well,
That's fair.
Um,
very.
Getting back to the quarterback, so like I think they all play. Douglas, apparently, Tyler Douglas, he's supposed to be like the fastest one, if that makes sense. So like
Mm-hmm.
if he comes in, maybe you see a couple read options just to throw the defense off.
Yeah.
I think Simon probably maybe looks the most ready just because, like I said, he came from Rutgers and has some of that experience. But like as of now, we don't know. The best way I can say this and this is almost as complimenting you guys and insulting Temple fans. Like I think this is almost just looked at as another practice for those three guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like as important as it is, like, oh, who's your week one starter? If I was a Temple fan and if any Oklahoma fans want to hop on the bandwagon, we will take all of them we can get.
Yeah.
But like who Temple's week two quarterback might be more important.
Right.
Like if the week one quarterback goes in there, does nothing, and one of those other guys comes in and gets 2 touchdown drives,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the week two quarterback is one of the other guys. So
Yeah.
it's not an insult to you guys. We are taking this game seriously,
Mm.
but my realistic expectation is this is new game tape for the coaches to watch and see who responded how, and then week two we go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, great stuff. Man, Sean, thank you so much for taking the time to update us. And like I said, I knew following you and seeing how much you have the staff on, you'd have the inside scoop and let us know. And I mean,
No,
again, not as a
thank you guys
disres.
for having me.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
was fun, man. I gotta ask, like, what's your guys' thoughts for Oklahoma this year? I'm sure you guys.
Oh, so
I
that's you
Oh,
opened up a can, because
yeah,
like
yeah.
Daryl's nickname is Dark Daryl, and I don't really have a nickname, I don't think, but I'm like more of the sunshine pumper. So yeah, we have some legitimate concerns, but I think we could have an 8-win, 9-win season, but that's like I feel like 9 to 10 wins is like major. That's
His
everything going
prediction was
perfectly.
9-3, Sean. That don't let him hedge down to 8 now. He predicted 9-3 was his prediction on the season. I predicted before fall camp a 7-5 season for us. The problem that we have, number one, we play 6 teams in the top 15 on our schedule. Of those 6 games, 4 of them they have a bye week the week before they play us, and 2 of those games they play Maine or the Citadel or somebody like that.
nothing that's really scaring them.
Right, the week.
Yeah.
So 6 games out of our SEC schedule, they basically get 2 weeks of preparation. They get an extra week of getting people healthy. And I just think in the end, that's going to be a lot to overcome with a brand new offensive line and a brand new quarterback. So I'm a little bit more on the low side. But again, like, I mean, I understand why people think 9-3. I get why Jared is there. I mean, defensively, this team should be very, very, very good. It's just a matter of can the offense catch up, and then we're going to need luck. I mean, we're going to need the luck of not having injuries and things because of those bye weeks. Because even if we're playing a team with injuries again, they're going to get that 2-week swing to get a few of those guys back, get them healthy, and we're going to be grinding through it every single week. So I mean, 6 games against teams that again have that extra 5-6 days of letting the body get healthy. I just think that's a recipe for
Well,
disaster for us.
well, and we also have we don't know what to expect from our offensive line. Like it's basically a whole new offensive line. There hasn't been great things coming out of camp about that. So I think some people like Daryl, especially, is like hitting the alarm button. Was thinking it's going to look like I'll shout out a Pennsylvania team, the Pittsburgh Steelers in preseason, where it just not looked very good at all. We think everybody's really high on Jackson Arnold as far as like he can purely slinging the ball. Like he's got amazing arm talent. Decision making is a question. Just being a young quarterback. I mean, you're going to be playing defenses that are the elite in college football, and they're going to show you things that are NFL level nearly. So it's going to be tough. So it's going to be a hard road, but I'm obviously much more positive than my brother. So
So
I
yes.
appreciate that. You know, you guys kind of contrast off of each other. I'm sure it makes for a good show all the time.
Some
it,
weeks, some weeks.
yeah, I'm obviously correct more than he is, so it's fine.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably is true. So, well, again, Sean, people can find you. I'll be back. I believe you said Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Twitter and the Instagram now, right? So,
Yes, all of those. I'm there. So I do Temple football. I also do Temple basketball season if you're a college basketball fan. So
heck
feel
yeah,
free to tune in. And no, thank you guys for having me. This was great. Just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
appreciate it, man.
Okay, first of all, I like Sean.
Yeah,
Good
dude,
guy,
an awesome dude.
fun guy, honest guy, real guy. But again, one of the things I was excited about interviewing him for was he definitely had information about the team that I think a lot of people are probably not aware of and just don't care to research. So anything from his side of it that kind of stood out to you at all, Jared?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're just a team that's in like a very transition. Like I think that's the thing people need to take heed of is like OU is very fortunate in that the resources that they have, right? So when BV came in taking over for Lincoln, while there was a lot of things that he had to handle that were massive projects, he had those resources to tackle that. Temple's in, I feel like, a little bit of the same boat, and you can tell that it's just they don't have the same level of resources that OU does. So it's going to take a little bit of time. But I think like that's hearing about the quarterback situation, their offensive line, like there's a lot of if you think OU has a lot of unknowns, it sounds like Temple has twice as many.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that stands out in that, look, in 24 in their last 24 games, they've had 22 different starting lineups for their offensive line. Like that's insane. Like I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like that's crazy. 22 different lineups over 24 games. So does that mean that they just found the magic bullet and it's going to fix everything? No, I think OU still should win this game. But let's also like not look at just the box score or the 2023 season stats and go, oh, you know what I mean? Like if Bill Bedenbaugh was saying, hey, we've had 22 different lineups in 24 games as our starting O line, there's a reason why the line probably hasn't been playing too good, right? Not been getting things going around very good. And then you add into it, I think he said there were 40 new players that are coming into this team. And so,
Mhm.
who knows what those transfers and all the different things will be or not be. And so they're kind of a blank canvas. I mean, 40 is pretty much half your roster
Yep.
is all brand new. So, you know, again, I don't go up and down the roster or hear Sean saying that they've got the talent to make this game, close, or they're not in some kind of delusional state that they're going to come in and win the game, and they shouldn't be. But again, like you said, the beauty of college football is you start this game off with a pick six, or you start this game off with a fumble on the first snap, or a snap that goes over Jackson Arnold's head early and turns into a save. I mean, all those little things all of a sudden turn the momentum. It turns everything around. And look, like I'm not anticipating this game to have great atmosphere at all. Like the
Yeah, not being
amount
a
of
Friday night. Yeah.
yeah, the amount of people I've talked to that are like, yeah, we're giving our tickets away. Like I just had a guy, what was that? Saturday, offer me 4 tickets. He's like, we can't go because we've already got this. We're trying, like, and everybody was like, my buddy, he hit like 3 of us in a text message thread. One guy, dude, my daughter's doing this. Hey, my son's doing this. I was like, hey, my daughter's cheering. I gotta go. Like, none of us could go. And
Well,
so I just think it's going to be an interesting deal that you do something stupid early to give Temple momentum, and the atmosphere in that place could be really, really down.
well, and I think you have to like I've said this already, and I'll say it again. You have to look at it from the perspective too of like this is the best situation for Temple to walk into against OU. Now, I'm not saying that that means that they're gonna win or anything like that. Oh, you should still be able to handle business, right?
Right.
But it's first game of the season, so you're gonna have, all those kinks that you're working out. You're still gonna be fine tuning everything as much as you can in fall camp. Going out into a live fire scenario, so to speak, is
Right.
different. Whether that's Temple or whoever, this is gonna be your first time that you're facing an opponent that hates you. So you have to adjust to those things. And then, like you said, the environment on being a Friday night is not gonna. I don't feel like is gonna be great. So it's like, yeah, I think that there's things that OU, um, like OU, it could be their own worst enemy in this type of game. Like you
Right.
said, if they throw a pick six early, those sorts of things. It's like that's one of those things that you're having to fight back in a scenario where it's like, dude, you are like you should be just covering this. Like you should be
Yeah.
relaxing and in coast mode, and now you're really having
Yeah.
to circle the wagons. And this is an opponent that on your when you look at our schedule for the season, OU schedule, it's like Temple is not one that we're circling as somebody that we should be
Right.
having any sort of sweat about.
Yeah. I totally agree. Look, reality, this game should be your starters get a few game reps, series two, quarter, whatever, and you're getting them off that field as fast as you can, letting your backups get all the experience they possibly can while maintaining, a big enough gap to get through it. Because again, the gauntlet that is about to be their schedule, you can't waste 85 reps of Danny Stutzman in this game, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't waste 85 reps of Billy Bowman in this game. It needs to be fresh. So now
We're really gonna be experiencing the real life wear and tear system from EA college football in this game. We should not
yeah.
have any severe injury
Uh,
warnings coming from this one.
yeah, exactly. That's what you don't want. Now, that being said, I think there's some things that have been kind of coming out slowly but surely that doesn't give you pause in the sense of like I'm putting us on upset alert, but what is the health of the O line? I think that's a big thing coming out of camp right now is who is truly going to play. And listening to Brent Venables' press conference yesterday, that seems to have a lot of the emphasis of the oars on the depth chart right now is they're just not sure who is or is not going to play on this team, so and then hearing Brent Venables talk about how Josh Bates was really struggling to get the snap within 4 feet of Jackson Arnold, for a big part of the spring. It's like, okay, if Hickman's not playing, that doesn't make me feel awesome, right? Again,
Yeah.
about starting our first game, big crowd, all the things like that kind of stuff. So that's my number one again is the O line. I want to see them dominate, and I hope that we're healthy enough to really see some of the guys that really are going to factor into this line. And I think it's something that could impact the game. So, how about you from the
Absolutely.
offensive side?
I mean, yeah, I did to echo that. There's a lot of, like I've seen there's a deal on Twitter about people freaking out that Nick Anderson and, it's like, dude, he's dinged up. Like there's going to
Right.
be some guys that are going to be like, you don't want to risk guy, even if it's a tweaked ankle that he's going to be fine by tomorrow morning, right? Or whatever. It's like, you don't need to be trying to throw him out there in this game.
Right.
Right. So there's some of those sorts of things. Like I said, the offensive line is definitely, we've already highlighted a little bit of how much of a question mark that is. And my biggest thing for the offense, like, and I've said this because I'm a Jackson Arnold, like I love the guy, right? But what is he going to be able to do? What is he going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to do? You're playing a lesser opponent. You should be able to go out and move the ball and throw the ball where you want to place it. You should be, hopefully the O line at least, against Temple is giving you enough time that you can sit back a little bit and process the plays and get that confidence. Because I think that's a big thing that people don't realize is, if he goes out in a game like this, even if he throws 2 interceptions and they win the game, it's like I threw 2 interceptions against a team I shouldn't have thrown 2 interceptions
Right.
against, right?
Right.
You want to give him that confidence. You want him to throw a clean game. You want him to play well, even if he only plays for a quarter or two or whatever. You kind of want that, and I think that's the big thing. I think that's one of those things that I think OU. I'm confident OU is going to win this game, but if there's going to be anything that's going to make it closer than it should be, I think that's going to be looking straight at him as, are you going to
Mhm.
be able to protect the ball?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like we've said, decision making, man. Like, don't get confused and don't throw it right to a linebacker when a guy's crossing the field, right?
Right.
Don't not see the safety over the top and lob one in there that he can break, like we saw in the Arizona game. That was one of them, right? Was the safety that kind of dropped back, but the reality was still able to put his foot in the ground and come up and attack the ball and take one away from the receiver. Those kinds of things. So, you know, we'll see. It'll be really, really interesting on that front. How about from a defensive perspective? What kind of stands out to you as far as this game goes in particular, and what are you kind of looking for there?
I mean, I really want to see because I really like. I'm going to watch the defensive line, like the closest, right? I think we know the linebacker room should be incredibly solid. The secondary should be incredibly solid. You're always, I think, as OU fans, we've had enough recent history to all of us. Anytime we hear good secondary, we have like PTSD from the past when we would hear that it was improved and it wasn't. But I think this is a solid unit. But the defensive lines, like, how are you going to be able to go up against a team like Temple? Are you going to be able to push people around? Are you going to be able to get in the backfield? Like, how are you going to be able to play? Because it's not getting any easier from here.
Right.
Um, so I want to see, and there should be some new faces. Jaden Jackson is starting,
Yeah.
the first freshman, and we've been high on him since he came in.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, the praise that they've heaped on him this week is kind of crazy.
It's pretty lofty.
Um, and so I'm interested to see some guys like him, just see if how they get after it and how they're able to push around, because I think that's going to be, like I said, you should be able to do work, but it's like if they're able to do that, especially when they start rotating deeper into that lineup a little bit of guys, that's about as good as you can hope for going into the to the SEC schedule coming up.
Yeah. Um, I'll go a little more specific. I do agree with the line, but the ends. If it's 3rd and 8 or longer, I want to see R. Mason Thomas destroy an offensive tackle to put pressure on the quarterback, right? I want to see PJ Adebawore just destroy an offensive tackle and put pressure on the quarterback. Like, I need to see those two guys in particular win one-on-one matchups and just wreak havoc on passing downs. If you cannot do that against Temple, I'm very hard pressed to believe that this pass rush is going to be improved in an SEC schedule, right? So that's not going to be there. And then corner, I mean, I know we're going to get into the depth chart a little bit more after this, but I there's a lot of oars, and I was kind of shocked by who was listed as starter and second, and even some young names on there. So I'm really curious to see who goes out there first at corner and just see how deep we really are at that position. And so that should be really interesting to watch and move forward on the defense as well. But man, yeah, I mean, to me, there's no reason with them not even naming a starting quarterback yet. And Sean saying himself, I think they're going to kind of use this to figure out who their starting quarterback is. Like, there's zero reason that first or second team defense should not just really, really be stifling and suffocating in this game in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the defense is going to, it should be able to, I mean, this is obviously the strength of this unit. So I hope for a pitch shutout, and that's hard to do regardless of who you play. You can say whatever you want. Regardless of who you play, it's hard to pitch a complete shutout. But especially hard the first game of the year. But it's like, I think this unit's good enough for it. It's just, can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Within the game itself, do you have any prediction on the score for this game?
I've like tossed this around because like I don't know, what to think. The spread was at 42.5, I think, is the
Mm-hmm.
spread. I made one with yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you were very kind on your we
Yeah,
also potted with Sean on his podcast
Yeah, I was gonna
about the
say I was very
game,
kind
and
with Sean, and I think I'm gonna have to walk that back because the more I think about it, I'm like, that's absurd. Unless like Jackson Arnold throws 8 picks, I don't see how that happens. Um, I'm gonna go 52 to 9.
oh wow, okay, I was 55-7, and I'm gonna stick by that. Um, I want to believe the first or second unit can pitch a shutout in this game, but it gets tricky when you start rotating people in and out, um, those kinds of things. So we'll see. But I mean, this if there's a game this season that they could pitch a shutout, it's this one in Maine. And
Right.
so it'd be really interesting to see if they can do that healthy and hopefully fired up to get out there and play. Um,
Yep.
Anything else like kind of off the beaten path that you're going to be looking for and excited to kind of see within the game that we haven't already talked about itself before we get to the depth chart?
I guess we may talk about this a little bit on the depth chart, but what's your like over under 8 freshmen play in this game?
Over all day. There's 17 listed on the 3D.
Okay.
There's
Substantial
17
playing time.
freshmen on the 3D. So if this game goes according to plan, I think you will see at least 17 freshmen play in this game, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
But I would also say this probably isn't uncommon. With the new four game rule that you can still redshirt after 4 games, I bet we could go back and probably find a game in the last 4 or 5 years where that many freshmen played in one of these early, tune up like last year. I'm curious how many freshmen played in last year's game, against Arkansas State when it was just an absolute annihilation. And I'm sure it was pretty high.
Yeah, well, and it's just, but it's also like I said, it does go to show the level of recruitment. It shows the level of culture, and just the quality of guys being brought in from not just an athletic standpoint, but we've heard from character standpoints of just being like those guys come in, they're not like I'm ready to sit on the bench for a year. Like they're getting after it, like they've been there for 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing for me that I'm interested to watch is just, and granted, I know it's going to be very vanilla, but I just want to see Seth Luttrell. Like we were talking about this the
Yeah,
other day, like the Arizona game. You were starting a first time quarterback, trying to blend a little bit of your offense and a whole lot of Levy's offense, and he threw the ball like 50 times in the game. Like that does not feel like a recipe for success for your first time starting quarterback to have him basically throw every other play during the game, right? So
right. Yeah,
what really will this offense look like? Because with Levy even, right? We heard, oh, we're we're a run team. He likes to run the ball. We didn't really see a commitment to the run with Levy all the time. Like we saw a lot of pass happy with him. Um, so I just want to see if there's a reality to this run game. I want to see a reality to the tight end game. Some of those things and just how he really calls a game will be really interesting to watch.
yeah. I mean, it kind of goes. I guess that's one thing. I guess I'll highlight too, and we'll talk again probably about this during the depth chart discussion. Now you have Zach Alley, also on the other side on the defensive side of the ball, and we saw some weird rotation on that side of the ball. Sometimes we were like, I don't understand what the game plan is here. Why we're rotating, somebody you throw RSJ out there and he would play great for 2 plays, and you pull him off, and you're like, well, okay, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the same goes to the other side of the ball. Like Seth Luttrell, are you going to be more in control? Because it just felt we really highlighted it with the running backs, but it was kind of all over the field.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was like there was games last year where it's like you felt like as soon as somebody started to get the hot hand or started to get momentum built up or rhythm, they got pulled off the field.
Yeah.
And I want to know if Seth is going to be more in tune with that and more there's going to be just a better management of that. Now, obviously, especially running back, DeMarco Murray is suspended for this game,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Breaking news today that DeMarco Murray is being suspended, which I guess the official word is that OU has not announced which game he will be
yeah,
suspended for. So he may still be on the sideline for this game. My guess is if they truly get a choice, that they would do that for Maine because you're going to be several games into the season and probably
Yeah.
feel comfortable with your guys and your rotate, whatever. But I could easily see it being Friday night as well,
Yeah.
But yeah, much to do about nothing there for me.
Yeah. No, I just want to see the rotation. I mean, I know it's going to be hard to tell maybe in this sort of game, but it's like I just want to, like you said, that's just something early in the game, especially. I don't want to see Gavin Sawchuk make a 15-yard run all of a sudden, and then we pull him off and put Javante Barnes out there for 2 runs, and then it's like, what are we doing? Like, I understand
Yeah.
having fresh legs, but if somebody's getting a hot hand, let him run. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get into some depth chart discussion because, when there's 95 oars on a depth chart, there's nothing like knowing for sure where people really stand with the coaches and with each other. So, anything in particular stand out to you? Other than I do believe they were able to hit the over on the oars this year on the depth chart listing.
yeah, there's a lot. There's some that it's like they could march out anybody. The kicker might be playing secondary. Um, I mean, I was a little surprised to see Javante Barnes that high up. I mean, he's listed as the starter or starter.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against Javante Barnes. We've heard good things again, but it's like last year was the same. It's like like I'm hopeful for him, right?
Right.
But it just feels a little bit like did it click in his head? Like, what's going on? Like, why is that suddenly different? And if he actually is starting or he's playing a substantial amount early on, then that's a little just surprising to me a little bit, as hopeful as I am for him. And then, like you said, like I want to know, the offensive line seems a little bit. I feel like we're going to see a lot of like, I mean, obviously, especially if the game gets to that point or whatever. Um, but it's like I feel like even early on we might see a little bit of shuffling with some of those guys. It just feels like there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't. There's a lot of guys on there that we've heard good things about. There's a lot of guys on there that we've heard. It's like that unit right there as a whole just feels like it has more flux in it, even though it doesn't even when you look at the depth chart. Uh, Only right tackle and left guard have oars technically on them, but I feel
Yeah.
like there's a little bit of unsaid oars. So I feel like we may see a little bit of shuffle there even early on in the game.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I would say the thing that really stood out to me was that Tyler Keltner was listed as the starter. Now,
Yeah.
you could say maybe that one, for whatever reason, when none of the rest, it really matters. Maybe that's an alphabetical order deal since there is an or there. But even Brent Venables in his press conference seemed to allude that
I,
Keltner was going to be the starting field goal kicker and Schmidt was going to be the kickoff guy. But here's what was crazy. In his press conference, he said that Schmidt hit 90% in
yeah.
fall. Look, man, none of us liked what we saw last year. I'm not going to try to pretend like I'm some kind of raging Zach Schmidt like apologist. But based on everything that everybody's been sharing, it's Keltner doesn't have a long leg and that
Right.
he wasn't having just some kind of dominant fall camp, whereas we were hearing Zach Schmidt was hitting 50-plus yarder field goals in practice, and now we're finding out he was hitting them at 90%. Like, I don't really know what's going on right there with that one.
Yeah, I don't. I'm very confused as to what's happening with that situation. Um, so I don't know. I mean, Schmidt, but we heard good things about Schmidt last year too, and then like I don't. This is one. Okay, here's my one critique, and somebody whatever, somebody's gonna be mad at me for this. My one critique of Venables and their staff is it always feels like some of that stuff is just PR, I guess is the word
Yeah,
I'd use. Like it's just a PR thing because it's like we heard Zach Schmidt's praise until all of a sudden he was like, well, he hasn't been doing that well. And we're
right.
like, well, clearly we can see that on the field. You know what I mean? But it's
Uh-huh.
like you were supporting him all the way up to the point where you were like, okay, he needs to do better. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, so what is it? And I understand some of that. You can't you're not just going to come out and divulge everything, but that does feel like a weird situation. So I do agree. I'm interested to see how that's going to play out.
How did you feel about the kick return, punt return lists? There's a lot of people, especially in our Discord, freaking out because the kick return unit is listed as Billy Bowman and Jaleel Farouk, right? And
Hmm.
possibly Dion Burks. And then your punt return unit is Peyton Bowen, no or. And then the number 2 guy is Billy Bowman. And so Discord was losing its mind of two of your three best safeties and probably your two starting safeties are return people. You cannot do that. They could get hurt on returns. Like, how do you yeah, what's your
I
take on all that?
I'm not nearly as freaked out. I mean, I think it's interesting to have both being safeties, right? That's where I'm kind of like I raise an eyebrow, but I also agree. It's like, dude, like Hollywood Brown was returning kicks, and you know what I mean. Like, go back and look. Sterling Shepard was returning kicks. Like, you look at playmakers, and it's like they were making kick. It's like most of the time they're probably still going to fair catch. Most of the time, it's probably not going to be a big deal. We need to chill out a little bit. I understand there's technically an increased risk for injury. Gee, like I mean, Venables did say it best. He's like anybody, any position get hurt on any play in a football game,
Mm-hmm.
right? He wants to put his best guys out there to be able to go out and succeed. And we've seen things from the one thing that I would say is to me, the only question I have is not to say that Peyton Bowen or Billy Bowman are not athletic or shifty, but are they shiftier than Deion Burks, than Javante Barnes? You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to go with that level of that attitude, are they really better than some of the offensive guys that like we're all drooling over to see? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that's my question, I guess, a little bit is like, are they really that shifty? And we just haven't because they play defense, we don't see it as much. I mean, we know that they're athletic freaks, but that doesn't mean that they're those guys that are gonna juke you out in a phone booth. You know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah, I mean, for Peyton Bowen, I don't remember Billy Bowman's tape with a bunch of punt returns on it. It may have been, but it's been so long now, I just don't remember his high school tape. Um, Peyton, I mean, he returned kicks all the time, and he
yeah,
made huge impacts on the game by returning kicks. I mean, I don't know. I'm with you, especially on punt return. I still think the vast majority are going to be fair catches. But if you have an opportunity to set up a return and you put your best guys back there, because the other side of that is, okay, we're going to put some fourth string running back or some fifth string wide receiver out there. Well, okay, well, now we get to OU Texas and it's a tie game or you're down 7 with no time left and they're punting the ball away to you. Now, all of a sudden, after no reps, no nothing, now you got to look to your sideline and go, okay, the reality is Peyton's our best punt returner. Come on, Peyton. Like, you haven't done it all. Like, come on, we need you now. Like, like what would
well,
people say in that scenario? It's like, why all of a sudden now are we putting Peyton? It's like, yeah, exactly. Why are we doing it now when he was the best option the whole time? Right. Like, and again, I understand the caution. I think things like kick coverage, I think things like punt return and kick return, like as far as blockers go, that's my bigger concern on the injury front because when you're engaged with someone in a blocking scenario and bodies start flying around, that tends to be when people get hurt, right? It's getting
right,
rolled up
yeah,
on, that kind of stuff. Fine. Use the guy that's 10% less on the blocking front, but let's
hmm
put the guy that's 100% in ability to find the hole and find the crease and hit it and go. Like, I want that guy and the guy that
yeah.
can catch the ball and not be stupid a la last year of when and when not to catch the ball and try to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is we've seen that in previous years. I think people are quick to forget, like you kind of highlighted, is like you would have there was years where OU was not good in the punt return game, for instance, and then all of a sudden you're getting into scenarios where you needed to be, and they're trotting out somebody that's not done it all year, and you're asking them to do a whole lot with no real practice at it. So I and like last year, Peyton Bowen was doing kick, like he was doing coverage, right? He was
Right.
doing kick and punt coverage. He was on playing special teams. And I didn't really remember anybody. Everybody was like, "Oh man, I hope he doesn't get hurt," but nobody's freaking out about it. Now everybody's losing their minds.
Right.
I don't think that it's that big a deal. I mean, I do. There's always going to be that time that you're going to be a little bit cautioned. You know what I mean? Like you're always going to have that little bit of, but it's like you're going to have that. How many times that's just football? I think people forget that's just football. Football's a violent game. Every time somebody gets up with a slight limp, everybody's tenses up. So it is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, totally agree. Um, I don't know. I don't get bent out of shape about those kinds of things. The reality of a ball game is 10-7 or even 14-3, and putting Peyton Bowen back to return a kick or a
Right.
punt is completely different than, okay, it's the second half, you're up 35 points and you're still playing your starters and somebody gets hurt, right? Like that.
Right.
Those are completely different scenarios in trying to manage, health and all those things. So,
Well,
um,
and even real quick, just touch on it too. It's like the safety position right now, like, as much as we think that the wide receiver room is deep, you already have some guys banged up there. Like, your Nick Anderson's already banged up. Andrew Anthony's recovering still. I mean, do you want to make that thinner whenever you have guys, as much as Bowman and Bowen we think are incredibly special?
right.
It's like you still have guys behind them that can play. So that's still a deep room.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the health and depth there is one of the reasons that he feels confident enough to put those guys as starters back there. Um, the other thing that people were really freaked out about is David Stone being third string defensive tackle.
I think that unit's going to rotate a lot, so I don't know that that means a lot.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I did find it interesting that BV in his press conference said that in their good on good pass rush scenarios, that David Stone was the leader in sacks amongst all D tackles. So everybody trying to spin this, well, David Stone's not starting, therefore there's a huge problem on our hands. I don't think really understands what's truly happening here. And again, this is where that they play different positions, though they don't, right? Jaden Jackson and David Stone, like technically on the depth chart, are listed at the same, right? But Jaden Jackson is definitely much more, if you're going to percentage it out, he's a 70% run stopper, right? With about 30% of pass rush. David Stone's a 70% pass rush guy and about a 30% stunt the run guy, right? So the fact that he's lower on that depth chart doesn't freak me out at all in the least. And I think the more that he gets his technique and his pad level figured out over the next year, he's going to elevate himself in that starting lineup and be an absolute menace. But as it stands right now, I think his pad level is a problem. And I think the use of his hands and things like that are a problem. But his athleticism and ability on pass rush scenarios for the D tackle spot give him an awesome opportunity to showcase his talents and his abilities.
I mean, the comparison I still draw is, and we haven't seen either of them play, so I'm going to be cautious with this, but it's the Samaje Perine to Joe Mixon comparison, right? Like, Samaje came in more built as a true freshman. Now, obviously, we talk about Joe's thing, whatever. He missed his freshman year, but um, regardless of that, knowing, like I said, I had people that I knew, and they were like, "Dude, Samaje's like that dude." He walked in as an 18-year-old kid and was ready to go. Like, he was already stronger than people that were here for 4 years.
Right.
And so I think that's where Jaden Jackson is. I don't know if he's, quite that level, but it's like at the same time, he's just more built right now for what they need. And I think he's going to be an incredible player. I think I'm excited to see him play. That's not to diminish what his ceiling is, but just like with Samaje, we saw Samaje break rushing records and was just an absolute animal. But it's like, at the end of the day, who did you think was going to get drafted higher and who was going to have a longer career in the NFL?
Right.
Right. Joe Mixon ended up reaching what it reached. And he did things that Samaje couldn't do. So we'll see. I don't think that that's a big deal.
Yeah. Anything else depth chart wise that you liked or stood out to you?
I do want to highlight one thing for our compatriot that's not here.
Oh, okay.
Casey Thompson is third on the depth chart behind Michael
Oh,
Hawkins.
yeah. What was it that Troy said before the season? There's zero chance that Michael Hawkins will even be listed as the backup quarterback, I believe is what he said. I believe it was something to that effect, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. Did we make a bet on that? I don't remember. We have so many bets going. I don't know. We'll have to run
I
back
know
the tape.
we're gonna have to look back, find the tape and see what happens there. But
yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I think that Michael Hawkins, his dad's very active on Twitter.
very,
And
very
is very
active.
much part of me is like, I'm cool with it. Like, the dude's got that attitude of like, I don't care. I'm coming for, like, I'm here to win.
Yeah. Oh,
And you want that in a
absolutely.
you want that in a quarterback. Like, he's got a little bit of that Like, because I've seen some people that are like, oh, chill out, blah, blah. And I'm like, to me, it's a little bit different because Michael Hawkins is more touted, and obviously, like, you know what I mean? Like, he was a high rated prospect. But it's like, it's that Baker mentality of, I don't care. I want to come out here and win and do my job. And
Right.
it's like, if you want to look at a comparison as just pure attitude without taking all that, it's like, it's the Baker attitude of, I'm just here to win. I'm going to do everything I can.
Right. No, I agree. I really do not want to, not trying to stir controversy or anything else, but it has been something that has caught my attention, not in the sense that I believe that there's a quarterback battle. I don't believe that. I'm not, in no way, shape, or form concerned about Jackson Arnold getting benched this weekend or anything like that. But have you noticed, or is it just me, that when players and coaches are asked about Michael Hawkins, there seems to be a wow factor a lot more, whereas when people are asked about Jackson Arnold, it's a little bit more, man, his leadership has been really good, right? And to me, like, there's times where I'm listening to that stuff and it's like, okay, Michael Hawkins is the really hot girl I want today, and Jackson Arnold is really cool and has a great personality. Like, is what it feels like a little bit. So, am I
Yeah,
overplaying that?
and maybe a little. I don't really think that much. I mean, it's hard to say. Like, they're so, though. Again, going back to the staff, and like the one thing that just frustrates me as a fan, I understand why they do it, is the amount of coaching what to say is another
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? Like, so I don't know how much I read into that, and we'll see. Like, I do think the staff has enough cojones that if Jackson doesn't play well or whatever, and Michael Hawkins is what we kind of have heard, I don't think he's that guy that they're going to just say he's our starting quarterback regardless of what he does.
Right.
Right? Like, I do think that. I don't think that's not controversial to say. It's not Brent Venables saying you throw one interception and we're pulling you and Michael Hawkins is a starter from then on.
Right.
Right? But it's like it's good to have. Like, Jackson Arnold knows, I got to go perform. I got to go be a leader, but I also have to go out there and play on the field. I have to be that quarterback, or somebody's right behind me willing to take that spot. And that's the competitive thing. That's, again, this is the thing. And I think this is, again, OU fans have to realize, because with Lincoln, you had almost none of that.
Right.
Right. Even I would even say some of the later years with Bob, there were certain position groups that didn't have that. Right. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you would have somebody that was underperforming and they would just ride them anyway. Like, whatever. Um, and you didn't have that. Like, it took forever for Lincoln to put in Caleb Williams
Yeah.
over Spencer Rattler, for instance, right? And I don't think, like, Spencer, I think Spencer was shocked by that. I think he was shocked that he was getting benched. And I don't think this is that staff. I think if those sorts of scenarios played out, hopefully they don't, I think this staff would be much quicker to react. And there's a lot more competitive, clearly, like, they've said this, like, everybody's going to fight for their job every single week.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it's just interesting. And again, you don't know. I think the other thing that you always have to be cautious with true freshmen is the mentality of a true freshman is this guy's going to have to figure it out
Right.
before, right? Unless they're just generational, like an Adrian Peterson, right? Like even Samaje, like when you were telling me, it's like, well, of course he's a freshman. No one expects him to be that strong. No one expects him to be that built. Like, you're supposed to work your way to that. So there's a wow if you show up knowing what to do, right? Does that make
Mm.
sense at all? Whereas Jackson's been there, so it doesn't mean he hasn't had wow moments. It's just like, yeah, we know, like we saw that last year, because last year he was kind of the wow guy, whereas Dylan was, well, yeah, Dylan's great, like,
Yeah, he's a
sure,
leader.
yeah, he's a leader, and so you have to be careful with some of that stuff too. That when anytime a freshman, I think, shows out early, the praise is going to be loud, I guess is the right way to say it, because of
Well,
that.
and look, I think you have to take a step back and look at it, because, like, Dylan Gabriel left to go to Oregon. Now, Oregon looks to be one of the best teams in college football, so that you can understand that to some degree,
Mm-hmm.
right? However, it's like, I don't think he would have left if he didn't know that Jackson Arnold was already pressing him a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, now you can take the Arizona. There's too many, like, factors with the Arizona game. I'm not saying that I write it off, but there's too much there for me to say like that's an encapsulation of what you're going to have with Jackson Arnold. I think that's incredibly unfair. So that's one of those things where I think the fact that Dylan Gabriel's gone, it should tell you a little bit about Jackson Arnold himself too.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. So we'll see what happens. I think the other thing that was a little surprising on the depth chart for me was Caleb Hicks being fourth behind Taylor Tatum. I know we've heard
Yeah.
a lot about Taylor Tatum, but I really expected that to be Caleb Hicks at the 3 and then like an or potentially with Tatum. But really seems like he's inserted himself there and done a good job there. So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
other than that, depth chart kind of was chalk for the most part. Now, depth chart slash BV press conference, I would say that Eddie Pierre-Louis has made an impression. Did you hear what BV said about him in his presser?
I don't know specifically what you're referring to, but
He at one point said, take a guy like Eddie Pierre-Louis who showed up this summer. He's like, if that guy shows up in January, the situation may be completely different than what it is right now. So alluding to the fact that he might very well be higher on that depth chart, which seems to me to say he's been very impressive early, but he's still having to kind of learn some playbook. He's having to learn some technique things, how they like things done, all that kind of jazz. So, but I thought that was really interesting that he
hey,
gave such high praise to Eddie Pierre-Louis.
somebody's been buying that stock already.
Oh my God.
Just saying.
All of us have been buying that stock already. We were all in on that guy.
So anyway, yeah, I do think that's it's interesting. I mean, I think that um it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, that's what's crazy is there's some of these guys that are like Eddie Pierre, like didn't show up till summer. It's crazy that you're starting as, especially on offensive line.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah. Tough spot. But that praise, it made me think this. Could we see another Caden Green kind of scenario here? Like for example, if Jacob Sexton is truly their best left tackle, like truly, is this a scenario where game 4, game 5, Eddie Pierre-Louis is going to step on the field at left guard and we're going to bump Sexton back out to tackle and run with that line from there? Those kinds of things will be interesting to see how that goes. So kind of fascinated to watch the progress of that one without a doubt. So,
for
all
sure.
right, prediction time. We did scores, but now let's do a little more like depth chart prediction, right? Like, so something really, some people call it a bold prediction, right? But I want to do like something really stupid off the wall. So not just like, for instance, Jacquez Petaway was another name that we really like and we've been buying stock in. He was finally on the 2 deep with no or. So it seems like he has firmly asserted himself into that slot position right behind Burks. Sorry, got that name somewhere in there. Dion Burks. So that's, a guy. So just saying like he's going to be the leading receiver. That's not bold or specific enough. So if you thought of a stupid, specific, crazy, bold take for the game on Friday.
First forced fumble for the OU Sooners this year, Michael Boganowski.
Oh, okay. Dang it. Not that mine's the same, but I was going to pick the same player. So, all right. Do you have any others, or is that your one big bold take?
I mean, I have I don't know if this is crazy enough. Bauer Sharp will have the first touchdown for OU this year.
Ooh. It's not crazy bold, but I like it. I do still like the prediction. So here's my first crazy one. So I'll go with Boganowski because he was mine. There will be not one, not two,
Okay, LeBron, chill out.
but 3 TV timeouts because of the pain inflicted by Michael Boganowski in the game. There will be 3 TV timeouts because he has knocked somebody flat on their back, and the medical team has to come out to help with that person. Now, I'm saying 3 TV timeouts. How about we just say there's going to be 3 stoppages of play? That might be better because you know how it is. If the game gets really out of hand, they're going to try not to go to commercial break so they can get this game over with, right? So, but there will be 3 stoppages of play because Michael Boganowski puts the massive amount of hurt on somebody in the game. So that's my defensive bold prediction, if you will, stupid specific prediction. Offensively, well, it's not really offensive, but I'm gonna go for it anyway. Peyton Bowen will return a punt for a touchdown. He will return an interception for a touchdown, and will have a fumble recovery in the game.
It's pretty bold.
That's pretty bold. That's pretty bold. But I think that dude's gonna make plays, and I do think they're gonna let him return a kick. I think he's gonna take it to the house. I think if he gets his hands on an interception, it could easily go to the house. And look, again, I think we've got some heavy hitters out there. You get a guy like Kobe McKenzie playing out there, those kinds of guys, it could really go crazy. So that's my other more defensive than offensive, but it's touchdowns, right? And then offensively, I will say Brennan Thompson averages 45 yards a catch.
Jeez. Okay.
How about that?
How
about that for stupid, crazy predictions?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I'll give another one then too. I'll give one. Taylor Tatum.
Oh, I like this.
Taylor Tatum will have 2 rushing touchdowns.
Oh, dang!
And will average at least 10 yards a carry.
Holy cow! Now we're getting to it. All right. Okay. All right. I'll have to go back down, write all this down, see how we did next week. But I like that one. That's good. That's really, really good.
These are obviously bold predictions, so the chances of hitting are
Like, look,
great,
again,
but
I hate when people are like bold prediction. Like, again, Teddy Lehman's a Butkus Award winner. But listen to their podcast. His bold was like, we're going to get a shutout. I'm like, you shut out Arkansas State last year. They were a better team than Temple is. This is not crazy. Like, that's not bold. Like, it's not bold at all, right? Like, just not. I do think he predicted 3 turnovers. I thought that's pretty bold. 3 turnovers in a game is not a norm, so that started to kind of get there. But yeah, all right, I like it a lot. Let's move into recruiting really quickly. OU got a huge win last week, which we alluded to. Michael Fasusi, the 5-star offensive tackle. I believe he's the number 3, number 2, number 3, depending on what service you look at. Offensive tackle in the nation, which gives you now 2 top 10 offensive tackles in the class with him and Ryan Foje. Huge one. At the same time, OU had at one point been predicted to land the services of one Jonah Williams, who's a 5-star safety in the country. Texas lands him instead last week. Your takeaways from the recruiting world last week on those 2 5-star recruitments?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like we've talked about that. Like Bill Bedenbaugh has like landed plenty of guys that were 3 or 4-star guys and turned them into NFL prospects.
Mm-hmm.
What can he do with a 5-star? Can he take a facility like this is what we've been dreaming of. This is like the dream scenario. Like we know that he's shown he has a track record of being able to develop, right?
Right.
And what's he gonna be able to do with a 5-star? So that's big. And apparently there's been rumors. I've seen some tweets from some of the services and stuff that there's 1 or 2 more guys in the offensive line, this offensive line class that are very highly rated that they are very deep in on. So,
yes.
I think that's awesome. I mean, this is what you're going to have to start doing that. You're going to have to start winning those recruiting battles because we've talked about the trenches is where especially in the SEC, is where you're going to win. But yeah, Jonah Williams, I don't know. That one's going to be a hard fought battle. Um, it feels like there's been a lot of stuff, and I don't want to go too far down this path because it could be a whole podcast on its own. It feels like with Texas, they really stay in the recruiting battles, and then they just have certain people that they throw NIL or something. Like it feels like a weird scenario where, like you said, like there was a lot of stuff trending OU's way, and then not to say it was like the 11th hour or anything, but it's like Texas kind of just surged out of nowhere, and you're kind of like, what's going on there? So, um, I am interested in that. I think he's a great player, but honestly, you also like it. That's one of those things. If you're gonna miss on a guy, for OU at least, I think they're in a scenario where it's kind of I would say you want to miss. You know what I mean? Like it's okay to miss on that one because you
Right.
have a lot of young guys that are already showing promise that you have a lot of faith in, and it seems to be a pretty deep class at safety too. So
Yeah, I would agree. I think just to play more really, I think in the reality world, I mean, look, NIL factors into all of these recruitments, but excuse me. I think that when I don't even know the guy's name now, but when the A&M baseball coach that took A&M deep on a run in the World Series quit immediately and went to Texas as the baseball coach, that really seems to coincide with the surge of momentum for Texas, right? Because remember, Jonah Williams by some is considered a potential top 3 round draft pick coming out of high school next year for Major League Baseball, not for the NFL,
right,
obviously. And so I think when that coach went to Texas, I think that was a major swing because it seems to me that while Texas A&M is involved in Jonah Williams recruitment, that is not a place that was really high on his list. It definitely seemed a lot more Texas, a lot more USC, and a lot more Oklahoma. And I think Skip Johnson and Oklahoma was kind of the combo early. And then when that coaching change happened, it really seemed like it began to go Texas's way, right? Because
sure, yeah,
look, there's some people that aren't even sure how serious Jonas Williams is about football, despite the fact of him being a 5-star and the #1 safety in the country. But again, I feel very confident in the safety room right now. If you're going to tell me you can only get one of those two, Michael Fasusi or Jonah Williams, I'll take Michael Fasusi all day long over the others. So huge win still. And again, like you said, a lot of services kind of alluding to there's another 5-star tackle that they might go get. And look, this is what I've been clamoring for from Bill Bedenbaugh. He has landed Creed Humphrey when Creed Humphrey was a 4-star prospect. Some had him as 3, some had him as 4, right? He's gotten some of those guys. But look, last year with Eddie Pierre-Louis, Akinkumi, and Brooks, that's a haul of a class, right? I think Logan Hallen, the one before, was a great get, although he never rode but he jumped the rankings big. I think that I look for those kinds of guys, right? Now you're getting top 10 Foje, top 10 Fasusi. I mean, Gabe Eichert, man, he says Foje and Fasusi are first to second round draft picks if they stay healthy. From a build,
yeah.
skill, all that, like that's a line that can go win the Joe Moore Award if they come along and don't get injured and they develop the right way.
Yeah, well, and like there's the other big part of that that you have to kind of to really consider is that like he's had where he's like hit like under Lincoln, it felt like there was years that he would hit, but he was like there was a lot of years that it was like okay, you're going and getting like a 3-star guy, right, and then you're turning them into something or whatever, and it's
Right.
like again being able to string together multiple classes of getting high end guys that are highly rated, like you said, is a whole other thing, and then like the development that he has. Like I said, there was the stat. I don't know if you saw this stat about like there was like the top programs, like the number of the it was ranking the programs that had the most were making the most money in the league
Yes.
now, like former players. And it's like Oklahoma's number 2 right behind Alabama, which
Right.
is all kind of crazy, honestly. But a lot of that is the offensive line. Like I think in offensive line paid, like OU's number 1.
Yeah.
So and Bill Bedenbaugh's in here long enough that you can't look at him and not credit him with a lot of that. So and I did find it a funny stat that it was like now with CD's new contract, he's making 20 million more than all of
Yes.
Texas's players combined
All of
are
Texas
making.
wide receiver, or was it their players
No,
or?
no, it was the entire the all of their players in the NFL are making less than CeeDee Lamb.
Oh my gosh, that's wild. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So huge win, man. I'm super stoked. The future is bright, which again, this is where I hope BV can have a really good season this year, because if he doesn't, you know, obviously the seat's going to get warm. But I do think what they are building is so solid. The defensive line is ahead of the offensive line right now. But man, with these last two classes, you've really got an opportunity to put something together in another year or two that could be really, really special and really, really fun to watch. Um, we'll see how it goes and how it comes together. So, and it's going to be a super fun weekend, man. There's a lot of big matchups this weekend. A lot going on. We usually do our picks against the spread, but we have just not had a chance to go through and get updated spreads on everything. So we'll have to try to catch up in week 2 on that. But it's been awesome. So cannot wait. Anything that stands out to you this weekend that you're ready to watch in particular, Jared?
Man, there's a lot of good games. USC's playing LSU, which I think that's Sunday or Monday. I can't remember which day that is, but that'll be interesting to watch because I don't have any faith in Lincoln Riley, clearly. But I also have a lot of questions about LSU. Lost a lot of talent.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that's going to be like. But yeah, it's just college football's back. There's actually like a good slate of games
Oh,
this
very
week.
good. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm pretty hyped. Yeah, obviously Friday I'm doing nothing. I'm watching the game. Friday I'm literally going to be glued to my TV as soon as I can. So I am excited for that, but it's going to be like I said, if last week was any indication, like I said, the FSU Georgia Tech game, an absolute blast.
Yeah. So some of those major matchups, A&M and Notre Dame is this weekend.
Good. Yeah.
You've got Clemson and Georgia this weekend, which I really don't think is a close game. I think Georgia is going to wipe the floor with them, but we'll see. Another sneaky game, speaking of just okay sports, South Dakota State versus Oklahoma State out the gate is a sneaky one. South Dakota State is a 2-time national champion at the D2 level. By the way, I heard this stat on the way home. Do you want to guess how many points South Dakota State allowed for the season last year per game?
No.
9.
9.
9. That's
Okay.
better than Iowa, which granted, I understand it's D2, but that's still impressive. And I also heard the stat on the way home. They won the Division II semifinal for the national championship 59-0.
Okay.
So Oklahoma State cannot afford to be stupid vanilla. They cannot afford to just come out of the gates and not do anything, or they're going to lose to a D2 school right out the gate. So I think that game is super intriguing. And then, yeah, I really do want to see. Like, I don't believe in it, but look, LSU lost so much. I don't sit here and believe that they're just going to run USC off the field, because I don't think their defense is going to be completely fixed yet. And they've lost a lot, but I also don't believe in USC. So we'll see what happens with that.
You made me think of another one. I was making sure it was this week. Sorry. Another good one, North Dakota State versus Colorado.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because North Dakota State, for people that don't know, North Dakota State has been like dominant in the FCS
Yes.
for a long, and they beat Kansas State just like not that long ago.
Yeah.
They've been that team. They've been like the FBS buster for
Yes.
a while.
Well,
And
they're like,
Colorado is a team
they've
I'm
won
still,
however many national titles the last several years as well. Like,
yeah. Well, and it's funny because like the Dion stuff has just gotten
yeah.
I don't know. I've like a 4-8 season's probably still in the cards for them. But we'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's just a lot of their storylines like that. We'll have to do it next week, where we do like our pick 'em, like where we do the picks of the games and all
Yeah.
that stuff. But
Yeah.
we didn't get to do that this week.
Yeah, we definitely have to fix that next week. So, man, that's all I got. You got anything?
The only thing I'm gonna go after we finish, I'm gonna go finish watching this Connor Stallion or the sign stealing Michigan
Oh,
Untold
nice.
story. It's pretty interesting. I don't know how to fit. Like, I was never like, it's kind of funny because like the way they paint it, which of course it's all like Michigan reporters and all those, and
Oh
like
yeah.
everybody hates Michigan. I was like, I really never had that much of an opinion on Michigan. Like I liked Ohio State Michigan matchups, but like never really hated them. And then now it's like, I just kind of like, it's a very weird, like, because they really are telling like his side of the story, and then they don't have like so far they have one player from Michigan, like former player that was there on the national championship team that's kind of like talked about it, but they haven't, like, the school apparently has a thing. They've showed the statements that like Jim Harbaugh's made and everything. And I've been the guy that from the beginning, I'm like, there's no way that Jim Harbaugh didn't know.
Right.
There's no way that he didn't know that this was going on.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, it is just an interesting watch just because college football's kicking off. So like, put it all in
Huh.
my veins.
I forgot that was coming. I'll have to give that a watch and see what that's all about. That'll be
Yeah,
great.
I think it came out like Friday I don't know. It's been out for a little bit now, but yeah, I'm like, I have like 20 minutes left of it. So,
Very
uh,
nice.
pretty
Very
excited to
nice.
check that out.
Oh, and by
So,
the way, CD Lamb, congratulations on your contract. We kind of alluded to it, but we didn't say a true congratulations for getting that done. And
yeah, dude,
you
can
know,
we just say like how the cow, dude, I thought that they were going to just fumble that completely.
yeah,
Um,
no, they needed it. They did the right thing, and CD got one heck of a check at 38 million for that signing bonus, which is pretty dang impressive. So kudos
yeah.
to him. Deserves every penny of it. It's awesome. It's been great to see Sooners doing so awesome in the NFL like that recently. So that's pretty fun. So well, that's all I've got. If that's all you got, again, please like, subscribe, please, especially on YouTube. Please subscribe. That'd help us out a lot and give us the opportunity to do a couple different things that we really want to do through the YouTube platform. So please go and do that. Like, leave comments, do all the stuff, help us out. We are grateful. Thank y'all for those of you that do listen to this. Again, we're just trying to give a fan perspective with a little bit of education. Next week, we will have the Houston Go Cougars podcast on with us to preview the Houston game. And by the way, I didn't even get a chance to tell you this yet, Jared. JY of the Brainiacs is going to come on and tell us what he thought about OU's offensive line
Oh,
in
heck
game
yeah,
one as
dude.
well. So we're going to have that next week also. He just confirmed that right before we came on. I forgot to tell you. So we got a loaded lineup next week. Some great information, great content for you. So come back and check it out. All right. We're having a great time. We hope you are too. I'm Daryl. That's Jared. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, Baker.